Hi everyone, I'm Beth Paschke from School of Chemistry at the University of Glasgow.
Hello, I'm Frances Docherty and I work with Beth. I'm also in the School of Chemistry in the University of Glasgow. So I wanted to just start with this quote from one of my favourite authors, Haruki Murakami. And it got me thinking about what we could be referring to by the storm. So it could be the challenges that the students face during their undergraduate time with us. Hopefully positive challenges, but maybe they wouldn't agree with that. But I'm sure that they would say that on graduation day, they are not the same person they were when they joined us in Freshers Week, that they will have changed quite a lot during their time with us. A lot of people would also refer to the storm as being this pandemic that we're going through at the moment. We still don't know how we're going to come out of this or when we're going to come out of this, but when we do, we will definitely be different people and the world will be a very different place. And hopefully we'll never see another storm of this magnitude, but we will see other storms in our personal lives in the future. So it just shows us that it's more important now, more than ever, that we produce students who are flexible and strong and resilient to deal with whatever challenges life throws at them. They're not just experts in their field. So this isn't just my personal view, it's also the view of my professional body, the Royal Society of Chemistry. So we are accredited by the Royal Society of Chemistry for all of our undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. And we have to renew our accreditation every 5 years. So we had to renew this last year. I was involved in completing the form. And the form is exactly the same as the one from 5 years ago, with the exception of one new section. And this section is all about transferable skills. So I've shown you part of the section here. And they have identified a number of transferable skills that they think graduate chemists should have, and we now have to show where we teach these skills throughout the undergraduate programme. So this just shows how much the RSC is now valuing transferable skills. And employers seem to value chemistry graduates as well. This data is from the New Scientist Salary Survey in 2019. They asked over 500 employers what types of STEM jobs they were struggling to fill, and chemistry came out top 25%. So they're really struggling to find good chemists to fill these vacancies. And they really seem to value chemists because they're not just good at doing chemistry, they're not just good with lab skills, they have lots of transferable skills as well. So what kind of skills are employers looking for? This was another study last year by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And the thing that really surprised me was that when they were asked about what attributes are you looking for in STEM graduates, technical skills just made it into the top 10, it came 10th. Skills that they're really looking for are graduate attributes. And they say it's really easy to teach someone how to use a machine or how to do a new technique, but it's much more difficult to teach someone to be a good problem solver or a good communicator. And that's the skills that they are looking for when they're interviewing. So how does this relate to our undergraduate students? Well, our final year students have to undertake quite a substantial project. Most of the students will do quite a traditional chemistry project. They'll be in the lab, maybe trying to make something or measure its properties, and they get lots of hands-on lab experience. Other students do a scholarship project. So Beth and I work in the Learning, Teaching and Scholarship track, so we offer more educational projects. Types of things that we've offered in the past, we've had students develop support materials for undergraduates, maybe making videos of techniques in the labs, for examples. We've designed questionnaires and ran focus groups to gather information on student skills and experiences and how we can help them. We've been involved in co-creation of the curriculum, and they've been involved in developing and outreach experiments and delivering these in schools and in the community. So these projects are actually really good at developing not only their chemistry skills, but their transferable skills as well. Now the students get a choice what type of project they would like to have for their final year project. And what we find every year is there's a few students interested in the educational projects, maybe because they want to go on to be chemistry teachers and do teacher training next year. But most students are really wanting to do synthesis projects and be in the lab all the time. Now last year, it was a very big year group and we couldn't accommodate everybody who wanted to be in the lab. So some of those students had to do teaching projects instead. So Beth and I had 2 students Ben and Lindsay. When Ben first came to see me about his project, he left and went straight to his advisor of studies to complain that he didn't want a teaching project. When Beth saw Lindsay, she went straight to the project coordinator to complain. And they were both offered computational projects as an alternative, but they couldn't get lab-based projects. So they decided to stick with us. We must have been the lesser of two evils. And I don't think it was because Beth and I are so bad to work with. I think they just wanted to be in the lab. They felt that their employment opportunities were being impaired by doing these educational projects. They wanted to put on their CV, I can use this piece of kit, I can do this technique. They didn't appreciate the value of the transferable skills at the start of this project. So I think that's quite worrying. Our final year students, they're applying for jobs, they're entering the marketplace for employment, and they don't understand what employers are looking for, what they think employers want, and what employers actually do want. There's quite a discrepancy. So I'm now going to pass you on to Beth to tell us all about the projects.
Thank you, Frances. So yes, more about Ben and Lindsay later and whether they were still unhappy at the end of their project. So onto their projects. Next slide, Frances, please.
Next one.
Okay, so there were two dilemmas amongst others that concerned us, and we wanted to look at these through Lindsay and Ben's projects. And the two main things that we wanted to look at were what the different skill sets were that were required by undergraduate and postgraduate students. Were they the same? Were they different? And the second point on the previous slide related to the development of a research skills course, which was a new course that we had introduced for our postgraduate taught programme. And the reason that we had felt it necessary to develop this new course, this research skills course, was that it became clear to us that our MSc students, they were arriving with us with quite diverse backgrounds in terms of their knowledge and their practical skills. And so we wanted to create a course that would enhance their practical skills and other skills that we felt were essential for them moving on and being prepared for their summer research project. Next slide, Frances. So the outline of Lindsay and Ben's projects are shown on this slide. In order to create a suitable research skills practical for our MSc cohort, Lindsay and Ben followed the tenets of inquiry-based learning. They researched the topic of IBL and in particular how this could effectively be incorporated into our practical work. Lindsay and Ben were also interested in finding out, using pre and post MSc research skills practical work, using pre and post questionnaires, how the students felt that their practical work and their confidence had improved before the research skills practical work and afterwards. As an additional thread, Ben and Lindsay also wanted to look at how their peers in their final year who were participating in their final year projects like them but in a research lab, how well they felt that our normal cookbook style lab practicals in years 1 through to 3, how well that prepared them for their work in the research labs when they started their final year project. Next slide. In relation to this, a questionnaire was circulated by Lindsay and Ben to their peers in our final year class. And this was circulated at a point when they had just completed their lab work. And one of the questions that they asked was how well did they feel that their peers had been prepared for their final year projects in the research lab. And you'll see that there's a bit of a mismatch, a surprising mismatch, I guess, in responses, that despite our students feeling confident that they could follow procedure, that there was a large proportion who didn't feel that they were actually prepared for their final year project in the research labs. And this provides us, I guess, with much food for thought moving forwards with our undergraduate teaching labs. Next, Francis. So this feedback that Lindsay and Ben had obtained, it somewhat justified what they were aiming towards when developing their practical for the postgraduate research skills course. And in doing so, they followed the four following steps. So they felt that they had to define the learning goals of the lab work. They would emphasise preparation. For example, that demonstrators and staff would have to be fully prepared for lab work where their students where there was no known answers for the work that the students were going to be carrying out. And that the activity should focus upon research procedures. So things like the preparation, researching of the topic, pre and post lab, the experiment itself, and the analysis of results, and not just about obtaining a product at the end. Next slide, Francis, please.
Sure.
Yep. So Lindsay and Ben identified 3 experiments which we already delivered in our undergraduate cohort, but that they felt could be adapted to encompass this new, these new learning points. And they identified the experiments based upon various practical factors. So things such as how costly would it be to deliver these practicals in a different format? How interesting is the experiment? How interesting would it be? And does it relate to material that's already taught in other parts of the course? How difficult would it be to adapt this experiment from our traditional cookbook style to a more inquiry-based learning format? And also, we would have to design it in such a way that the experiment could fit into a defined time period when the lab was available. So there were 3 experiments identified, as I say. There was one relating to green chemistry, a Wittig reaction, and a reduction of citral. Thanks, Francis. So the aspects of these experiments that were reviewed by Ben and Lindsay and that were adapted for our MSc cohort included a consideration of green principles, for example, by asking the students to implement procedures which minimise the use and the production of harmful substances. Our students would also be asked to design their own practical, and this would be based upon pre-lab literature information that they would be provided with and have to research themselves. And they would have to complete their own COSH assessment, so they would have to be cognizant of the safety implications of what they were about to do. This is something that we don't normally ask our students to do. Technical and academic staff would normally prepare the COSH forms, but we were asking our students to do this themselves. In addition to bringing in green principles, there would be explicit reference to real life applications introduced too. We also included team working, whereby the students shared the results of their own experiments. So not all students would be performing the same experiment under the same conditions. They would all perform the same experiment but under different, slightly different experimental conditions, and then compare their results. And the final thing, which we had hoped would enhance their communication skills, was that they would be required to write a report and also to present their findings at a poster session. Thanks, Francis. On finalising their projects, Lindsay and Ben collected feedback from the MSc students who had participated in this new format of our research practical. And in general, feedback was very good, and it included the types of comments that we had hoped we would see. So things like they liked collaborating with others, they felt it useful to have the chance to research literature. It brought into the fore topics such as green chemistry that are really important in our industry today, and the fact that they felt confident in the lab. Obviously, there were some other comments that are useful moving forwards, and they felt that they would need some extra examples of scientific writing to help facilitate what they had to do. Some other nice comments that we got relating to our staff, which we found very encouraging. Also some points such as, because English was often a second language, that they preferred to have their material in written form rather than presented by a lecturer. Thanks, Francis. So general conclusions that our project students arose was that they concurred that inquiry-based learning is beneficial in building students' transferable skills, and that was borne out, I think, by the comments that we received from our postgraduate students. They did make some general comments about trying to introduce inquiry-based learning into our practical work, that we had to recognise that it would be quite difficult to introduce sometimes due to time and resource constraints, but actually in the long term that students would really value that additional effort and input. As far as their peers were concerned, in final year, they re-emphasised again that having a wider variety of experience before they start their final year project would be beneficial. And just a general comment about collecting feedback, that questionnaires can often not tell the whole story, and that actually using a variety of feedback methods would be advantageous. Thanks, Francis. And just to finalise from Francis and my point of view, so we had two very reluctant project students at the start of their project. As Francis mentioned, we hoped that it wasn't us personally that they objected to, but rather the concept of the project itself. And I think it was the concept because they didn't actually know what a scholarship project involved. So these were some positive outcomes from their perspective. And I think we two fairly positive students at the end. They were both I was very impressed by their professionalism in delivering the project, even though it was not a project that they had originally encountered. And I think that says something for our students, that they can adapt, and that in itself, I think, is an excellent excellent characteristic that would be valued in the workplace. So these were just some of the positives that they felt they'd got out of it. They were involved in work-related learning. They designed a project that we delivered as part of our curriculum. They liked the collaboration with each other, but also with the other students, their peers, and the postgraduates as part of the project. They felt they developed their organisation skills and their communication skills, and that they had a really good view of what was involved in the learning and teaching process. So I think in the end we had two happy students and two very happy supervisors. Okay, next slide. And through their project, through their excellent work, they also got the opportunity to present. They submitted an abstract and it was accepted for the Sparks conference in March 2019. And that's a photograph of Lindsay and Ben at that event. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, Frances and I will be happy to try and answer them for you.